Hello, everyone. This is Aaron Lojeski with Fairbanks Aurora Tours. Today, I'd like to share with you why you should not use the UAF Geophysical Institute for timely and especially short term aurora forecasting. First off, Fairbanks Aurora Tours is a local company here in Fairbanks. We take people out up to nightly. We go mobile. We find the best viewing conditions as predicted and go out and hunt them down and go out and find the aurora, take aurora portraits with folks. As you'll see on our website, got a whole description here, photos and aurora portraits, everything. It's all there for you. Frequently asked questions, etc. So, current space weather conditions. As of 19 hours ago, NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, which should be your go-to source for space weather, they're kind of the primary source here. They're helping to run these satellites and getting first crack of data and whatnot. As of 19 hours ago, they were saying, hey, look at this, a G1 minor geomagnetic storm, which, by the way, is a great event for watching the aurora. It doesn't guarantee great stuff, but it sure the heck makes it a lot more likely. Is in effect from 09 to 10 December due to anticipated arrival of CME produced by a C7 flare from region 2790 on the 7th. So they saw this flare on the 7th. The flare is primarily light and heat, and light travels at, well, speed of light. So you get that first warning that something's happening. The CME, it takes a little bit more analysis from the scientists to correctly predict. But at any rate, at this stage, they do believe we have a CME coming right at us, and it should produce a huge shock wave of extra strong solar wind. And it's very likely that it's going to produce well above average aurora. Not guaranteed, but very likely. So it's something exciting. And last time this happened, at least that it was dark in Alaska and we got to enjoy it, I took this picture. And it was just going nuts. It was everywhere. It was an awesome night. Other photos from that night. Those are edit. This is straight from the camera here without the edits. Kind of brighten it up a little bit when you edit it a little and try to make it easier to see. But great picture. So if you're an aurora watcher, you kind of want to know when this is going to happen ahead of time, if at all possible. Now, this particular event here that you're seeing photos from, they didn't predict correctly. They said, hey, there's a CME kind of coming at Earth, a coronal mass ejection, but we think it's going to miss. It's going to be a near hit, but ultimately they said it was going to miss. Well, I'm not a scientist, but from these pictures, I'd say it hit. This is well above average aurora activity. Anyway, back to the space weather stuff. So the CME that we're talking about, it's a lot of them are caused when there's basically a sunspot on the sun, and a sunspot's typically caused when there's a pinched magnetic field line that protrudes a little bit out of the surface of the sun, so it kind of looks like a loop magnetic field line. If you could see magnetism, you'd see a loop, and they can get twisted up too much like a rubber band and snap, and when they snap, they can release a bunch of sun material. So you could think of it like a sun volcano or a sun pimple that's kind of squished some stuff out into space. Maybe not very attractive sounding, but hey, good analogy there. And this stuff comes barreling out of the sun, flying three-dimensional, making a huge shock wave out. And so if it's pointed anywhere near Earth, it's pretty easy to predict it'll hit. And so anyway, they're confident it's going to happen. And you can see here, as of 11 hours ago, they're giving an update. Now they were saying geomagnetic storm watch in effect for the 9th to the 11th due to anticipated effects of the CME. The CME occurred on December 7th. So they're talking about in universal time here, but guys, it's the end of the day on the 8th in Alaska time. So we've known about this for a while, and it's a really cool thing. However, if you go over to UAF, remember, 9th to 11th universal time is when they're saying the effects are going to be. And I'll refresh this right now so you know it's current. And, we just lost the forecast for the 8th, but that's fine. I wonder if we can go back to it. No, we can still get it. You'll see for the 8th, they were saying KP2. By the way, KP is not an aurora forecast. It's a forecast for the variation in the vertical component of about a dozen magnetometers around the planet in middle latitudes. It does correlate somewhat with aurora activity, but it is not an actual measurement or direct prediction of aurora activity. So just keep that in mind. It's okay to use for especially longer term forecasting because it's kind of the best we got, but it's certainly not perfect. Anyway, the point is their numbers. KP2 on the 9th, 10th, KP3, 11th, KP3. And again, go back to this here. They're saying 9th through the 11th, geomagnetic storm. Geomagnetic storm typically means KP5 and above. and UAF is saying 2s and 3s, which isn't a bad Aurora forecast, but it's certainly not correctly predicting the storm. So here's kind of the secret that's what's going on, and this whole forecast is really quite misleading. Down here it says the Aurora forecast is updated daily at midnight UTC time. Well, there's a component of this forecast that's updated daily, and perhaps they're updating the data daily, but that doesn't matter if the root source of your data only updates once a week. And that's in fact what's going on here for this primary forecast that they have here. So your main forecast is actually being copied and pasted from NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center. And they have this 27-day outlook, and if you go down and read the notes and the history and everything, you'll see it's been out since 1951. Probably right in the Cold War. Probably had to do with Soviet United States relations. But at any rate, it's been out for quite some time, and they update it once a week, and they make it for 27 days out, which is one Carrington rotation of the sun. So from our perspective, if you look at the sun, it takes 27 days to complete one of its versions of a day. Again, from our perspective, in reality, it's like 29 days or something. But to us, it appears to be 27. So they're making one full rotation of the sun's predictions of what space weather will do when it comes to us. And the UAF forecast is literally, they're taking these largest KP indexes, and you see there's more to their outlook than just the largest KP, but they're literally taking this, copying and pasting it, and repackaging it here. And again, this 27-day updates once a week, Monday. So this is a highly misleading statement when they say the Aurora forecast is updated daily at midnight UTC time. It's updated once a week is what it is, because the primary source is only updated once a week. Anyway, what that means is if you have a current space weather condition occur that requires a rapid update for a huge change in space weather, like the sun volcano erupting in our direction, essentially, this coronal mass ejection that went off, this is just not going to cut it. The information is just too old, and that's why your numbers are showing too low. However, wanted to make another comment on this updated daily. Part of this forecast is, if we go up to, why isn't it not loading this time? Let's refresh the page, see if we can get it. This little thing here, this here is another copy and paste version of something that NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center comes up. So they have two variants of their 3-day forecast. If we go into products and data here, they have their 3-day forecast and 3-day geomagnetic forecast. They're both valuable. The 3-day forecast will break down this KP forecast. Instead of just telling you what the largest predicted KP value is for the full day, they will give you 8 separate 3-hour forecasts. And what you're seeing here, this KP7, December 10th, 300 to 600 hour, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Universal Time, that is like the arrival of the expected like punch there in this CME. But you can see that they see it starting to really ramp up already here. And even as I'm broadcasting this, recording this, there's reports of elevated aurora activity over in northern central Canada. So perhaps the beginning effects of the CME are already arriving. But based off this forecast here, you're going to see the bulk of the effects here, but you're seeing another surge 24 hours later. And for Alaska, middle of the night is 600 to 900 and 900 to 1200 Universal Time, 1 day out. Universal Time, if you don't know, is essentially the equivalent of London time, which is 8 to 9 hours off, depending on whether you're on Alaska Standard or Alaska Daylight Saving Time difference. So essentially, they're a day ahead. If you see a forecast for the 10th, you need to say, okay, that's for Alaska's night of the 9th, night that begins on the 9th, ends on the 10th. So you're seeing this catches it, and the reason why this is catching it and that 27-day outlook is not, is this is updated twice a day. And they'll give you the timestamps. This was last updated at December 9th at 0030 Universal Time. And the geomagnetic one, where is it here? Let's go back to products and data, 3-day. Same numbers. It's very, very similar. You'll notice there's no notes at the bottom. They'll give you the timestamp. Sometimes it's slightly different, but they'll use the same numbers. They'll give you this nice probability of increased stuff. So active corresponds typically, I believe, with KP4. You have to be KP5 before it's considered a storm. So that's minor storm, moderate storm. I'm not sure actually if that's supposed to be 6 or 7 or what. But at any rate, any good numbers here means you've got to elevated chance of good aurora viewing for that night. So you can just see that these numbers here are probably capturing the early part here end part of December 9th Universal Time. And then they look even better the next day here. You got a 10% higher chance of moderate storm and 4% percentage chance higher of strong storm or extreme storm. So at any rate, that's what's going on here. And what you will find on this UAF one is this, like I said, is pulling those numbers from the 3-day here. But you'll notice right now they're not the same. They're different. And that is because that's the part that's updating daily at midnight. So once UAF updates this, it will catch up. But, UAF is essentially updating this forecast here, this little bar, once a day, when the actual forecast is updated twice a day. So there's a good chance you're looking at 12-hour plus stale information when you look at UAF. It's just not going to give you the most timely information. And if you want to know what's going to happen on the night you're going to look, you want the most current information. It's got some other problems, but they're minor. They're kind of more nitpicking. So that's kind of the main one. If you do want to use the root UAF one correctly, never use it for 1, 2, or 3 days out. Always go to Normal Space Weather Prediction Center, grab this 3-day. If you happen to have an app, some other apps are pulling this data. It's public information. You can repackage it and sell it off in an app. It's public government information that belongs to all of us. So yeah, use this information here. They have the notes here, right? Rationale G1, geomagnetic storm is likely 09 through 11 due to the combined effects of a weak negative polarity and arrival of the December 7th coronal mass ejection. Peak storm impacts from the CME reach G3 activity on the 10th. That's what they're calling for, which is that's KP7 that they're forecasting. So it's right there, your real information, and UAF is just kind of missing it because they're operating on this 27-day. And the real shame is this comes up number 1 on Google when you Google Aurora forecast. It's not a real Aurora forecast, right? It's just a stale KP forecast, and it really. And then the other real issue is the universal time. Most people, first time you look at this, unless you're an airline pilot, computer enthusiast, whatever, you're not. There's no reason for most of us to be fluent in universal time. And so what most people do is they'll say, "Oh, December 9th. That's December 9th right now. It's for tonight." No, it's for the next day. That day's already occurred, basically, when you're looking at it. So, like tonight, when I'm recording this, it's December 8th, 2020. It's almost 9:30. It's already the 9th in London, which is the equivalent of universal time. So it's, if you were looking at this forecast for tonight and you wanted to go out aurora hunting here in the next hour or so, whatever, it's already happened. You've missed it. So you always have to look a day out and do your time zone conversion here to get the correct information. And so for North America, that's essentially the interpretation is if you go down here and say, what's this big bar here? That's from a predicted alignment of a coronal hole on the sun with Earth at that time, or the solar wind coming out of that coronal hole aligning with Earth at that time. So 2020, 12/19, December 19th. So if you wanted to right now come up to Alaska, try to take advantage of that, you would book a tour and go out on the 18th. Because again, the end of the day, 18th in Alaska, is the 19th in London in the effective time zone of this prediction. No guarantee it'll be accurate, but that is in fact the current prediction. So in summary, don't use UAF, especially for 1, 2, or 3 days out. Even their version of the 3-day forecast is updated half as frequently as the root source is, and this repackaging of the 27-day forecast is just too stale, not precise enough, and it's very likely to miss major space weather events like the one we just talked about on this short video. Thank you for listening. Bye.